Nolan Rusk's final warning was written on his windshield after the medical examiner says Nolan Rusk could no longer hold a grease pencil.
Then those weren't his last words.
No. Somebody manufactured last words for him. Nolan disappeared inside the Halcyon Flood Control Complex in Dunlow, Michigan, on October 12, 2009. That night, his locked work truck was found on an isolated service road with thick orange letters across the windshield. Gate 4 will fail.
17 years before they found him.
In July of 2026, an emergency reservoir drawdown exposed a sealed maintenance chamber beneath Gate 4. Nolan's remains were behind a rusted trash screen. His skull had been fractured, his hyoid bone was broken, and silt had been forced beneath his fingernails as he fought inside that chamber.
He went in alive.
Alive or near death, according to the medical examiner. Then investigators recovered 7 damaged frames from an obsolete security backup. Those frames showed another man walking to Nolan's truck and writing the warning after the fatal assault. Here's the first report from Dunlow when that discovery became public.
Authorities now say missing Water Authority Inspector Nolan Rusk was the victim of homicide. Recovered surveillance images appear to show an unidentified person moving Rusk's municipal pickup and writing on its windshield, after investigators believe Rusk had already been attacked inside Gate 4.
So who staged Nolan's warning?
And why hide his body inside the structure he said was unsafe?
That second question matters. If the killer only needed Nolan gone, northern Michigan offers forests, abandoned mill property, miles of empty road. Putting him inside Gate 4 ties the concealment directly to what he discovered.
Or to who had access. Those lower chambers were secured municipal spaces. You needed a controlled key, knowledge of the water schedule, and enough confidence to work around heavy machinery without attracting attention.
That's not improvisation.
Not the concealment. The killing may have been. We are going to separate what looks planned from what was done in panic because they may not be the same part of the crime. This is the Cold File. I'm Marcus Reed. I spent 22 years with the Los Angeles Police Department working homicide and cold cases. And this one begins with a killer using the victim's own warning as camouflage.
And I'm Dr. Christy Hart. Call me Christy. Marcus. Before we build a suspect list, how certain are we that the windshield was written after the assault? 17 years is a long time to reconstruct a morning.
Good question. The conclusion does not come from one estimate. Investigators combined the recovered camera sequence, Nolan's dispatch call, control panel access records, turbine alarm logs, the position of his remains, and the movement of his truck. The camera clock was checked against a repeating turbine warning tone captured on the same system. It was running 43 seconds slow, not hours.
Concrete synchronization.
Exactly. Machines drift. Investigators measured the drift. The person at the truck was there well after Nolan entered the lower corridor and never came back out.
Do the frames show a face?
No. Usable face. The camera was mounted high, the weather was bad, and portions of the image had been overwritten. What survived showed clothing, movement, the truck, and the writing arm. Enough to prove Nolan was not the writer. Not enough, by itself, to name who was.
Which means we still earn the answer.
We do. Dunlow had been built around 2 promises. The paper mill would provide work, and the Halcyon Flood Control Project would keep the river where it belonged. By 2009, the mill had cut most of its workforce. Halcyon was still hiring engineers, mechanics, welders, dispatchers, and security officers. It became the employer nobody in town wanted to challenge.
Because challenging it could cost more than your own job. Your spouse might work there. Your brother might have a contract there. Your property value might depend on the reservoir being called safe.
Right. In a company town, pressure does not need to arrive as a threat. Sometimes it is a reminder that the same institution signs everybody's check.
And Nolan challenged it anyway.
Repeatedly. Nolan Rusk was 34, a civil engineering inspector and a new father. His wife Erin later described him as a man who checked the smoke detector batteries on the first Saturday of every month and wrote the date inside the plastic cover.
I already know that man.
He labeled leftovers. He carried 2 mechanical pencils because one was not a backup. It was a single point of failure.
That's very engineer, but it's also revealing Nolan managed anxiety through verification. Check it, record it, preserve it. If someone told him a weld was fine, he wanted the measurement that proved it.
He also kept duplicate field notes. That habit was not paranoia. Infrastructure inspection generates revisions, substitutions, and corrected reports. Nolan believed the original observation should survive whatever happened in an office afterward.
Did Erin know about the duplicates?
She knew he copied important measurements, but she did not know where he put the notebook, Neither did his younger brother Micah. The final duplicate stayed hidden behind Nolan's garage workbench until the Cold Case Project searched the property in 2026.
17 years, sitting feet from ordinary family life.
In a sealed, weatherproof tube. Aaron had moved out years earlier, but the house remained in the family. The tube was behind a fixed timber brace, where you would only see it by lying on the floor and shining a light upward.
Why hide it at home instead of giving it to an attorney?
Nolan did not yet think he was documenting a murder motive. He thought he was protecting his work from being altered. That distinction matters. Whistleblowers often recognize fraud before they recognize personal danger.
And he had a baby at home. He may have been telling himself, I'm being careful, because admitting I'm in danger creates a different obligation.
His daughter was 4 months old. Nolan had taken the halcyon job partly because it reduced his travel. Before that, he ran a small surveying venture with a man named Craig Sutter. The business failed, the equipment debt did not, and Craig blamed Nolan.
There's our first personal enemy.
A loud one. Craig left hostile messages, threatened to ruin Nolan in a civil fraud dispute, and told mutual friends Nolan had better pay what he owed.
Real threats?
Real enough to investigate, but Nolan's more immediate concern that October was Gate 4. On Friday, October 9th, Nolan entered the spillway with an ultrasonic thickness gauge and a camera. Gate 4 had undergone emergency reinforcement work after stress fractures appeared near 2 support ribs. The authorities' paperwork said the weld repairs had passed inspection.
Nolan's instrument said otherwise.
It showed discontinuities beneath the weld surface. In plain language, the metal looked joined from the outside, but there were internal gaps and cracking where the weld had not bonded properly.
Could Gate 4 really have failed?
Not in the movie version where the whole dam bursts without warning. The credible risk was progressive cracking under load. A gate could jam, deform, or release water unevenly. That can injure workers, damage downstream property, and compromise the other gates during a flood event.
Serious, but specific.
And repairable if people stop lying about it.
There it is.
Nolan photographed cracked seams and recorded measurements that did not match the certified repair summaries. One of the welders, Elias Prine, confronted him on the catwalk.
Confronted how?
Witnesses heard Elias say Nolan was going to cost him his certification and his union job. Nolan answered that Elias should worry about who told him to sign defective work, not the inspector who found it.
That's pointed. Nolan thought somebody above Elias was directing the fraud.
Possibly. Or Nolan was trying to get past a defensive contractor and identify who approved the shortcut. Either way, Elias had a direct financial threat hanging over him.
Were the welds actually Elias's?
Several were. Others had been assigned to his crew. That distinction got blurred early. Elias did not personally perform every defective weld, but Nolan's findings could still have suspended the crew and triggered a broader certification review.
So Elias had fear, anger, and proximity.
3 days before Nolan disappeared, yes.
But he's arguing in front of witnesses. That can mean poor control. It can also mean he doesn't believe he needs to hide his grievance.
You're already moving him down your list.
Not down. I'm refusing to let one public argument do all the work. What did Nolan do after the confrontation?
He called Micah that evening. Micah's recollection became one of the most important early statements because Nolan named falsified certifications before anyone knew he would vanish. This is Micah speaking in a local interview recorded during the first week of the search.
Nolan said the numbers had been copied from an older inspection and changed just enough to look current. He told me, if they close that gate before I get the raw readings out, they'll clean the bad seams and say I photographed the wrong section.
He expected evidence tampering.
Yes, but he still went back alone.
New father, careful man, duplicate notes, why alone?
Because the inspection was his job, because it was Monday morning, and because danger often looks less immediate inside a workplace full of people you know. Nolan was not meeting a masked stranger. He was entering a municipal facility where he had badge access and coworkers nearby.
Familiarity lowers the alarm.
Monday, October 12th. Nolan arrived at the maintenance annex shortly before 8. At 8:17, he submitted a preliminary stop work memorandum to his supervisor, Leon Baird.
How disruptive was that?
Very. Halcyon was trying to close out the repair before seasonal water levels rose. A stop work order could trigger state review, delay federal reimbursement, and force the authority to inspect every related contract.
Nolan didn't just question a weld, he threatened a chain of signatures.
Leon had signed inspection summaries containing false data. Procurement Director Mara Venn had approved emergency contracts connected to the repairs. Elias Prine's crew had performed disputed work. By 8:17 that morning, all three had a reason to want Nolan's memorandum withdrawn or contained.
Contained is a useful word. Murder is not the first option for any of them. Delay him, pressure him, alter the file, discredit the measurement, those are cheaper.
Correct. In real investigations, motive does not automatically mean willingness to kill. It tells you who had something to lose. Then you test access, behavior, opportunity, and what each person did afterward.
What did Leon do when Nolan handed him the memorandum?
He marked it preliminary and told Nolan they needed a confirming measurement. Leon then left for a procurement meeting scheduled from 8:30 until 10:15. 3 staff members later confirmed that meeting happened.
Convenient timing, but corroborated.
Corroborated presence, not innocence. A meeting alibi can prove Leon sat in a conference room while someone else acted on information he supplied, or it can mean he had nothing to do with the violence. We keep both possibilities open.
Was the stop work memorandum preserved?
A routing copy survived. Nolan's attached photographs did not. Leon said Nolan took them back to obtain the confirming measurement. The digital copies on the engineering server were later reported missing.
There's institutional access again.
Or a victim carrying the only copies into a confrontation with the contractor whose work they could destroy.
Marcus,
I'm not saying Elias did it yet.
you put one foot over the line.
I put him in the interview room. There's a difference.
Fair, keep going.
At 8:31, Nolan radioed dispatch and asked for a controlled lower corridor key. The recording survived because Halcyon archived radio traffic separately from its security video. Listen to Nolan's wording.
Dispatch, this is Rusk in Fleet 12. I need the lower corridor key for 4. 1 measurement and photographs before it gets cleaned up. I'll return it through Annex Control.
Before it gets cleaned up.
He was not referring to ordinary housekeeping. Surface grinding is a legitimate part of weld correction, but it can also remove visible defects and change the exact area an inspector photographed. Nolan wanted a second measurement before anyone touched the seam.
Who issued the key?
Security Chief Warren Dace authorized it. A security officer placed the key in a coded lockbox near the Gate 4 entrance. Nolan retrieved it at 8:46.
Did Warren know why Nolan wanted it?
The dispatch channel was audible at the security desk. Warren later said he heard the request but paid no attention because he was dealing with a delivery gate malfunction at the South Warehouse.
Supported by what?
A handwritten security log.
Written by his own department.
Yes. At the time, investigators treated it as routine corroboration. Warren was a former county deputy, he knew the state police responders, and he helped organize the initial facility search.
Helpful witness with keys.
Helpful witnesses still get checked. Or they should. Nolan left the annex in Fleet Pickup 12 at 8:38. A gate camera recorded the truck heading toward the spillway. He used his badge at the upper Gate 4 entrance at 8:44 and collected the lower key 2 minutes later.
Then what?
The original investigation said the cameras malfunctioned.
All of them?
No, that language was misleading. The upper approach camera recorded Nolan arriving. A lower corridor camera was supposed to cover the secured passage leading to the maintenance chamber. Its footage was missing. The system had not malfunctioned across the site. One relevant stream had been deleted.
Very different sentence.
Much different. At 9:12, Nolan's badge registered at a lower electrical door. At 9:17, the control panel recorded the chamber's manual service light switching on. After that, no system recorded Nolan leaving.
Could he have exited through an unmonitored hatch?
Physically, yes. There was a catwalk stair and an emergency ladder, but neither explains how his truck later moved roughly 3/4 of a mile to the East Service Road. Someone drove it there.
Using Nolan's key?
The ignition key was found inside the locked truck.
So the driver carried a duplicate fleet key or locked the original inside after getting out.
Correct. Municipal fleet trucks commonly had duplicate keys held by maintenance and security. Nothing mysterious. The important question is who knew where those duplicates were controlled. A groundskeeper found the pickup at 9:26 that night. The doors were locked. Nolan's lunch bag sat behind the passenger seat. His wallet was in the center console. The lower corridor key was gone.
And the warning was already on the glass.
Gate 4 will fail. Written from the driver's side, in broad orange grease pencil. The first word began high near the roofline, and the lettering slanted downward across the windshield as the writer moved toward the passenger side.
Was that Nolan's grease pencil?
Likely from his inspection kit. A short orange stub was recovered later from the drainage gravel beside the road. The material composition matched that of the brand issued by Halcyon, but thousands of identical markers were in industrial use.
Fingerprints.
No, usable. Nolan's prints were found in the writing. Grease pencil holds ridges poorly, especially in rain. The stub had been exposed to water and grit, so the absence of prints did not prove gloves were worn.
Did the handwriting match him?
Not cleanly. Nolan formed his capital G with a short inward bar. The windshield G had a long horizontal stroke. His R usually had a straight leg. The R on the truck kicked outward.
That should have set off alarms immediately.
It should have prompted caution. Handwriting on a vertical wet windshield is not comparable to writing on paper at a desk. Different posture, different tool, possible haste. An examiner in 2009 called the result inconclusive.
But behaviorally, the message bothers me more than the letter shapes.
Why?
If Nolan believed the gate was about to fail and wanted to warn the public, why put the warning on a locked truck parked on a restricted service road at night? Call emergency management, call the state, drive into town, leave the memorandum with his photographs.
Unless he was injured and had seconds.
Then why lock the truck? Why leave his wallet? Why move it away from gate 4? The message performs urgency, but the placement limits who will see it.
Search crews would see it.
Exactly. I think it was written for investigators. It points them toward a safety dispute while pulling their attention away from the person who controlled the truck, the keys, and the cameras.
You're reading coordinated institutional misdirection.
I'm reading access. Maybe one official, maybe several. But this is not a killer merely dumping a vehicle. Someone constructed a story. Nolan found a dangerous gate, panicked, left a warning, and disappeared.
That story also protects a defective contractor. If Elias confronts Nolan in the lower corridor, loses control, kills him, and realizes the last argument was witnessed, the warning redirects the motive from personal violence to a broad infrastructure scandal.
Elias would still need the duplicate truck key, the controlled corridor, and a way to delete one camera stream.
Contractors worked in that corridor for weeks. They knew the doors. They knew where tools and keys were kept. Access at an industrial site is rarely as clean as the policy manual claims.
There's your foot over the line again.
Fine. On what investigators had that night, Elias Prine would have been my first hard interview. Angry confrontation, threatened livelihood, familiarity with the work zone. I would test whether a panic assault became a concealment.
And I'd start with whoever could make the facility tell a false story. The staged warning? The moved fleet truck? The missing video? Those are authority behaviors, not just rage.
The next morning, October 13th, search crews found Nolan's hard hat beneath the catwalk. About 20 feet away, under a grated stair, they recovered one torn inspection glove stained with his blood.
How much blood?
Enough to establish injury, not enough to indicate he bled out there. The glove had a rip along the cuff and gray silt pressed into the fabric. Initial laboratory testing found Nolan's blood and mixed biological material from at least one other contributor, but the sample was too limited for a useful profile under the methods available then.
Where exactly was it found relative to Elias's work?
Directly below the section his crew had repaired.
That is bad for him.
Very. Add the argument 3 days earlier and you understand why I'm not dismissing the contractor theory. A struggle at the defective seam could tear the glove. Elias could strike Nolan with a steel tool, then drag or carry him toward the lower chamber.
Briefly strangle him.
Possibly, while trying to control him. The later autopsy showed a depressed skull fracture and a fractured hyoid. That combination fits a chaotic assault followed by force at the neck. It does not tell us whether the attacker arrived intending to kill.
But then the attacker does several organized things, moves the body into a chamber, deals with the truck, writes the warning, removes the lower key, and eliminates video.
Organized after the fact does not prove organized before it. People can become methodical when prison is suddenly real to them.
True. But methodical within a system requires knowledge of that system.
Also true.
Did search crews open the chamber where Nolan was eventually found?
They checked the accessible side. The chamber was partially flooded, and a rusted trash screen blocked the rear recess. Search divers were told the recess terminated at a concrete wall.
It didn't.
No, old construction plans showed an offset maintenance pocket behind the screen. Updated facility drawings omitted it. Nolan had been placed in that pocket, and debris accumulated against the screen over the years.
Human error or deliberate omission?
The drawing change predated Nolan's death by almost a decade. It appears to have been a drafting simplification, not part of the murder. But the killer knew the old pocket existed and used a flaw in the authorities' records to hide him.
Thank you. That's the distinction. The bad drawing did not kill Nolan. A person exploited it.
Search teams covered the reservoir roads, downstream banks, drainage channels, and nearby woods. Nolan's missing flyer appeared in grocery windows and gas stations. State police brought dogs through Gate 4, but moving water, fuel odor, metal surfaces, and dozens of workers complicated scent tracking.
What did the family think when they saw the windshield?
Aaron said Nolan would never reduce his finding to Gate 4 will fail. He was precise. He would have named the seam, load condition, or required closure. Micah agreed the wording sounded dramatic in a way Nolan did not.
That's important victimology. The writer imitated Nolan's concern but not Nolan's mind.
Police still considered voluntary disappearance. Nolan and Aaron had medical bills from the birth, the failed surveying business had left debt, and Craig Sutter had threatened civil action. Investigators suggested Nolan might have staged the truck and walked away.
Leaving his 4-month-old daughter?
Families abandon families. Detectives cannot rule it out because it feels cruel. But you need behavioral support. Nolan had not withdrawn money, packed clothes, transferred funds, or contacted anyone after October 12th. His passport was home. His wallet was in the truck.
And his blood was under the catwalk.
Which should have made voluntary disappearance a secondary theory, not the public emphasis it became.
Bad police work.
In part, the search itself was substantial. The investigative focus was not. Detectives treated the authority as the location where Nolan encountered trouble, but Craig as the person most likely to have caused it. Craig had motive on paper. He claimed Nolan owed him nearly $40,000 in equipment debt and planned to testify that Craig had misrepresented assets during the dissolution of their surveying company.
And the threats weren't vague.
No, Nolan had saved 3 voicemail messages. This was the one investigators played most often.
You don't get to leave me holding the debt and then walk into court like you're the honest one. You testify against me, Nolan, I will make sure everything you built comes apart. You hear me? Everything.
Ugly.
Very. Craig admitted making the call. He said he meant Nolan's professional reputation and house, not his life.
Did Craig have a clean alibi?
Not at first. He said he drove overnight to a supplier meeting in Toledo and slept at a roadside motel after arriving. The motel had a paper receipt, but the clerk could not remember him. Cell records showed his phone moving south, but investigators argued he could have given it to someone else.
Reasonable skepticism.
Up to a point. Years later, recovered toll camera stills showed Craig's face behind the wheel at 2 separate plazas. Motel surveillance also placed him in the lobby during the killing window. Craig was angry, threatening, and ultimately not at Halcyon.
Which is the danger of a satisfying suspect. His behavior gave investigators a story they could understand without challenging the town's biggest employer.
Craig deserved scrutiny. He did not deserve 17 years as the unofficial answer.
What about Elias's alibi?
Elias said he was at a medical clinic with his daughter when Nolan entered Gate 4. The clinic's intake record appeared to put them there later than Elias claimed, leaving him an open window.
So he stays viable.
Deeply viable. He knew the lower corridor his work was exposed, witnesses heard the threat, and Nolan's bloody glove appeared beneath his repair zone. If I were reviewing the original file without the evidence recovered in 2026, Elias is where I would apply pressure.
I'd apply pressure too. I just don't think his panic explains the system bending around the crime.
Then this next item is where your argument gets stronger. The original Gate 4 surveillance hard drive was removed from Halcyon's server rack and signed into the authorities' internal evidence locker 2 days after Nolan vanished.
Good. Preserve the source.
Except when state police returned with a seizure warrant, the drive was gone. No checkout entry, no broken lock, no report documenting its transfer.
Who controlled that locker?
Halcyon Security. Warren Dace held the master key, but his deputies and 2 senior administrators also had authorized access.
Then before we call this contractor panic, Marcus, who walked into that locker and removed the one camera that could show us what happened to Nolan Rusk. Not Elias Prine, not unless Elias also knew the locker procedure had a master key and could make a hard drive disappear without creating an access record.
That is where I start backing away from a simple contractor confrontation, not abandoning it yet. If Elias had an accomplice inside security, or if somebody removed the drive later to protect the authority from embarrassment, those could be separate acts with separate motives.
You think one person kills Nolan and another person cleans up the institution?
I think homicide files become dangerous when detectives assume every lie serves the murder. An administrator can hide records to protect funding without knowing who killed anybody. A security chief can falsify a log to cover negligence. We have to prove coordination before calling it conspiracy.
Agreed. But somebody recognized that hard drive as dangerous within 48 hours.
and had the confidence to take it from a locked evidence room. State police interviewed Warren Dace as the custodian of the locker. He said he had placed the hard drive inside personally, then discovered it missing when investigators arrived with the warrant.
Did he offer a suspect?
He suggested an engineering administrator might have removed it because the drive contained footage of safety violations unrelated to Nolan. He did not name Leon Baird directly, but he mentioned Leon had asked whether the cameras showed unauthorized contractor access.
That's a careful accusation. Give investigators a direction without owning it.
Warren had spent 9 years as a county deputy before taking the Halcyon job. He understood interviews, he answered the question asked, volunteered plausible context, and positioned himself as the man trying to preserve evidence.
How did he present?
Calm, cooperative. He brought key rosters, camera diagrams, fleet records, and employee schedules into the interview without being asked.
Almost too useful.
Sometimes competent witnesses are useful. Detectives get in trouble when they treat preparation as guilt. What matters is whether the records he supplied were independently verified.
Were they?
Some were. The most important one was not. Warren's alibi was the South Warehouse delivery gate malfunction. The log said he arrived there at 8:45 and remained until 9:30, covering the period when Nolan entered the lower corridor.
Who saw him?
Warren listed a delivery driver and a warehouse mechanic. The driver remembered being delayed at the gate, but could not identify Warren. The mechanic said security handled the problem, but he was inside unloading pallets and never saw who came.
So the log became the witness.
Exactly. And the log was handwritten under Warren's authority. In 2009, detectives compared the writing to other entries and saw nothing obviously inconsistent.
Was the gate actually broken?
A magnetic sensor had failed intermittently that week. Maintenance replaced it 2 days later. The malfunction was real. Warren's presence was the unproven part.
That's clever if it's fabricated. Attach your alibi to a real defect. Anyone checking finds a work order and stops there.
That is a practiced report writer's move. Build the false statement around facts that survive verification.
Former deputy.
Yes. But at this point, we still have no evidence Warren knew Nolan's findings threatened him personally. He had access and a weak alibi. Elias had an explicit financial motive and a bloody scene tied to his work.
Then let's finish Elias properly.
Elias Prine was 41, a certified structural welder, divorced and raising a 13-year-old daughter during the weeks he worked at Halcyon. On October 12th, she had an appointment at a pediatric orthopedic clinic for a recurring knee injury.
The clinic record originally put intake after 10:06.
That gave Elias time to confront Nolan around 9:15, conceal him, move the truck, and drive to the clinic.
Tight, but possible.
Roughly 40 minutes from Halcyon to the clinic in normal weather. If Elias left Gate 4 before 9:30, he could have arrived shortly after 10. Investigators repeatedly confronted him with that window.
How did he respond?
Angrily at first, then he asked for an attorney, which some local coverage treated as suspicious. It was not. A man being accused of murder after police find a bloody glove beneath his worksite should get counsel.
Especially after admitting the argument.
Elias never denied it. He said he believed Nolan was blaming individual welders for bad material, rushed schedules, and supervisors ordering crews to work through rain. He also admitted saying Nolan could cost him his job.
Did he threaten to hurt him?
2 witnesses said no. One remembered Elias pointing at Nolan's camera and saying, "You take that upstairs, we're all finished." It was fear, not a direct threat of violence.
Still emotionally hot.
Very. Investigators asked Elias to describe the morning himself in a later recorded interview. I want you to hear the detail he kept returning to.
I picked her up before first bell because the clinic told us to come early for imaging. I was mad at Nolan, yes. I was mad at everybody there. But my kid sat beside me all morning. Ask her. Don't make her spend her life thinking I left her in a parking lot to kill a man.
That lands hard.
His daughter gave the same account. Detectives initially discounted it because she was family and because the clinic time contradicted them.
What corrected the time?
The clinic had 2 systems. Reception entered Elias's daughter into the billing system at 10:06 after the appointment. The imaging department had scanned her temporary wristband at 8:58.
There it is.
That scan was discovered years later during a civil records review. Her school attendance portal also recorded an excused pickup at 7:54, and a traffic camera captured Elias's truck heading away from Dunlow at 8:21.
Could he have doubled back?
Not, and reached the imaging room by 8:58. The corrected records put him more than 30 miles from Gate 4 before Nolan collected the lower key.
Then Elias didn't kill Nolan.
No. My first interview would still have been justified. My early theory would not have survived proper alibi work.
Specific concession accepted.
Not the full concession yet. Elias's work zone still matters because somebody placed Nolan's glove there, or Nolan lost it during an earlier movement through that section.
You think it may have been planted?
I think its location became too convenient once Elias's alibi was established. The glove was beneath a grated stair, partly sheltered from the rain, while Nolan's hard hat lay in open view. That can happen naturally during a struggle. It can also be scene dressing.
Hard hat visible, bloody glove under the defective welds. 2 arrows pointing at the contractor.
And both found by search teams Warren helped deploy.
There's the shift.
Search assignments came through a joint command post. State police set broad priorities, but Halcyon security advised which corridors were accessible and which areas had already been checked. Warren personally escorted one team along the upper catwalk.
The team that found the hard hat.
Yes, he was not the person who physically spotted it, a volunteer firefighter did, but Warren selected the route and told them the flooded lower chamber was inaccessible until divers arrived.
And later the divers were given the wrong drawing.
An updated drawing from Halcyon's engineering archive. Again, that drawing had omitted the rear pocket years earlier. We cannot say Warren altered it for this crime.
But he knew the facility well enough to know whether it was incomplete.
That became the question. Warren's own training file showed he had participated in confined space rescue drills inside Gate 4, including one drill using the old rear maintenance pocket.
He knew it existed.
He had been inside it.
That puts him uncomfortably close to the body without giving us the motive.
Correct. Opportunity is not motive. Facility knowledge is not murder. But investigators should have stopped treating him solely as a guide.
Now Leon Baird. Nolan handed him the stop work memorandum at 8:17. What kind of supervisor was he?
Conflict avoidant and deadline driven. Leon had been at Halcyon for 26 years. Coworkers described him as technically capable, but increasingly willing to accept summaries from other departments, without checking the raw data.
A man who signs because the machinery around him says the signing has already been decided.
That is generous. His signature certified weld readings he had not personally reviewed. If Nolan's memorandum triggered an outside audit, Leon could lose his professional license.
That's a serious motive to suppress the report.
It is. His procurement meeting began at 8:34. 3 staff members placed him there continuously until 10:12. The room had one door, and one participant remembered Leon taking a landline call around 9.
From whom?
The call sheet did not identify the extension. Leon said it was a routine question from operations about reservoir level.
Could he have ordered someone to stop Nolan?
He could have communicated. There is no direct record that he did. His office telephone placed 2 outgoing calls before the meeting, one to Procurement Director Mara Venn and one to the security desk.
Warren's desk.
The main security extension. Leon said he called because Nolan needed the lower corridor key. That explanation fits the timing.
It also tells security. Nolan is going down there with photographs.
Yes.
What did Leon do after Nolan failed to return?
He did not report him missing. At 11:30, a dispatcher noted Fleet 12 had not checked back. Leon said Nolan sometimes remained in the field through lunch. At 3:15, Aaron called the annex because Nolan had missed a pediatric appointment. Only then did Leon ask security to locate the truck.
That delay is awful.
It is bad supervision. Whether it is guilty delay depends on what Leon knew. He told investigators he assumed Nolan was angry about the memorandum being marked preliminary and had gone home.
Without checking his parking space or calling his wife?
No documented attempt.
Behaviorally, Leon worries me in a different way from Warren. Leon shrinks. He delays, avoids, lets other people define events. Warren expands into the crisis and becomes indispensable.
That is a good distinction.
If Leon had ordered a killing, I would expect stronger post-crime management or a clearer alliance with whoever carried it out. Instead, he seems frightened of the audit and frightened of admitting how little he verified.
Fear can still produce complicity.
Absolutely. I'm not clearing him. I'm separating active design from passive cover-up.
Leon later admitted something he had denied for years. Several false inspection summaries were already formatted when they reached his office. The technical tables came from outside the engineering division.
Outside engineering? Who prepared them?
Leon said the files arrived through a shared project folder managed by procurement and security because emergency contractors needed controlled access.
Why would security touch weld data?
Halcyon claimed it was a network permissions arrangement. Contractors could not access the engineering server directly, so security administered a shared exchange folder.
That is an enormous opening for manipulation.
It is terrible data governance. It does not prove Warren altered the tables. Leon could also be spreading blame after the fact. But Nolan's duplicate notebook later showed that raw ultrasonic readings had been replaced with numbers copied from an older repair.
Just as he told Micah.
Exactly. The shared folder should have retained an access history. It did not. 3 weeks of audit logs covering the Gate 4 repair were deleted during the night after Nolan disappeared.
Same missing window as the camera.
Similar, but technically separate. The camera system stored video on a dedicated security server. The project folder sat on Halcyon's administrative network. Someone with elevated credentials could reach both, but ordinary contractors could not.
Could Leon?
He could reach the project folder, not the security video. Mara Venn could reach contract files, not camera controls. Warren's security administrator account had broad privileges because his department handled overnight system alerts.
There's your institutional actor.
Or compromised credentials. Password sharing was common at Halcyon. One administrator admitted the night staff kept a supervisor password on a card inside a locked drawer.
Locked by security?
Security had emergency access to the office.
Marcus, every route keeps coming back to the same department.
It does. But your initial model was coordinated institutional misdirection. We still need to know whether the authority acted collectively or whether one person exploited weak controls.
Fair push. Let's get to Mara.
Mara Venn was Halcyon's procurement director. She approved emergency repair contracts without ordinary competitive bidding, including payments to several companies connected to Gate 4.
Nolan's stop work order threatened federal reimbursement.
And could expose bid manipulation. Mara had classified repeated work as separate emergencies, allowing each contract to remain below the threshold requiring board review.
That sounds deliberate.
It was ethically compromised and potentially fraudulent. Her motive theory was strong. Silence Nolan before state auditors examined the contracts.
But she was nearly 2 hours away.
A planning conference camera recorded her entering the lobby at 7:49 that morning. She appeared in session photographs at 8:30 and 9:40. Multiple attendees interacted with her.
So she didn't personally go into Gate 4.
No, she could still have directed somebody. Investigators examined calls from her office and mobile phone. She spoke to Leon at 8:23 for 41 seconds, then had no contact with Halcyon until afternoon.
41 seconds is enough to warn him, not enough to build a murder plan from scratch.
Precisely. If Mara ordered violence, it would likely have been arranged earlier. No witness, message, payment, or later statement supported that.
What did she say the call was about?
Leon told her Nolan had submitted a preliminary stop work memorandum. Mara instructed Leon not to circulate it until she returned and could assess the funding consequences.
There's suppression.
Administrative suppression, yes. She wanted to delay the memorandum. That was wrong and consequential. It is not proof she wanted Nolan harmed.
Did Mara eventually admit why she ignored his warning?
In 2026, after the remains were found, her attorney arranged a recorded statement. She said Halcyon was about to lose federal money, layoffs were expected, and she convinced herself Nolan's measurements could wait for another internal review.
I did not believe anyone would hurt him. I believed he was making the project harder at the worst possible time, and I treated that as the emergency instead of the gate. I was protecting funding. I understand what that costs now.
Painfully honest.
Late honesty. Mara's decisions helped create the delay and outside oversight. She did not kill Nolan, but she participated in the culture that made his warning easier to bury.
This is where corporate conspiracy can become too blunt. Several people can protect the institution for different reasons without agreeing to murder. Leon protects his license. Mara protects funding. Security protects control. Those motives overlap, but they are not identical.
Exactly. Conspiracy requires agreement. Institutional cowardice only requires people to keep choosing themselves.
I'll refine my position. The staging still came from someone who understood Halcyon's systems, but I'm less convinced the authority collectively designed it.
That is movement.
Don't enjoy it yet.
By November 6th, state police publicly classified Nolan as a missing person and focused their working theory on Craig Sutter. The local paper ran his debt dispute above the fold. Halcyon's missing video appeared 6 paragraphs into the story.
There's the red herring fully formed.
Craig's threats gave it credibility. Detectives believed he might have followed Nolan to work, confronted him, then used the infrastructure dispute to stage a disappearance. They suggested Craig could have obtained a duplicate truck key through the surveying business.
Did he ever possess a Halcyon fleet key?
No evidence of it. Nolan joined Halcyon after their company dissolved. Craig had never worked inside Gate 4 and did not know about the lower maintenance pocket.
But the theory was emotionally tidy. The angry ex-partner makes good copy. The municipal security chief helping with the search does not look like the threat.
And once Craig became the primary suspect, warrants followed that theory. Police searched his home, his truck, a storage unit, and former surveying sites. They did not immediately seize Halcyon's full security archive or mirror its administrative servers.
That's the cost.
A major one. By the time investigators requested the complete archive, routine retention cycles had overwritten much of it. The original hard drive was already gone, employee access records were incomplete, and 2 contractor account directories had been purged.
17 years did not erase all that evidence. The first few weeks did.
Well said. Cold cases are often described as being solved by new science. Sometimes new science is repairing damage created by old assumptions. The Craig theory also changed how search resources were used. Once police believed Nolan might have been removed from Halcyon in another vehicle, teams expanded into county forest and former surveying parcels.
Away from Gate 4.
Away from the place his badge last registered, where his blood was found, and where a controlled key had disappeared. Searchers returned to the spillway, but not with the same urgency. The rear pocket remained behind the trash screen.
Did Erin challenge the police publicly?
She did. At a January press conference, she asked them to stop describing Nolan as a debtor who ran away and start treating his work as the reason he vanished. Here's part of that statement.
Nolan did not leave our daughter. He went to Gate 4 because somebody changed his inspection records. If you want to know where he is, please stop looking at who he owed and look at who needed those records to disappear.
She had the case in one sentence.
She had the correct direction, not yet the offender. Families can see behavioral truth before they have admissible evidence, and investigators should listen without letting grief substitute for proof.
But here, proof was sitting inside the employer's systems.
Some of it, and the authority was already preparing for another inquiry. In early 2010, a state auditor opened a limited payroll fraud inquiry at Halcyon. It did not begin with Nolan. Anonymous complaints alleged overtime had been billed to workers who were not on site, and emergency repair invoices contained duplicated labor hours.
Same contracts?
Some overlapped with Gate 4. Investigators hoped the payroll records might identify who profited from the false inspections.
Finally.
The inquiry ended without charges on March 18th. Key inspection files were reported missing, timesheets had conflicting approval codes, and the auditor said the available records could not establish whether the discrepancies were fraud or poor accounting.
Who reported the files missing?
Mara's procurement office discovered the gaps. Leon certified that engineering copies were unavailable, and security documented that archived boxes had been moved during a pipe leak.
A pipe leak?
Real leak. Wrong room. Maintenance photographs later showed water damage in payroll storage, while the missing Gate 4 files had been kept in a dry records room across the corridor.
Another real event used to support a false explanation?
Exactly. That pattern matters. The gate sensor truly malfunctioned, but Warren's presence there was unverified. A pipe truly leaked, but not onto the missing records. The welds truly were defective, but Elias was not at the killing.
Someone keeps fastening lies to sturdy facts.
Which is more sophisticated than inventing events outright. A good interviewer breaks those statements into pieces. What happened? Who saw it? When did it happen? Does the true part actually prove the claimed conclusion?
Did the auditor interview Warren?
Briefly. Warren said security moved sealed record boxes away from the leak and returned them after the pipe was repaired. He supplied a transfer sheet bearing 2 officers' initials.
Verified?
One officer said the initials were his but did not remember signing that sheet. The other had left Michigan and was not contacted until the cold case review.
And?
He said Warren routinely pre-initialed transfer forms for overnight moves, then asked officers to complete details later.
That wrecks the chain.
Completely. Evidence custody is not a ceremonial signature. The person signing must know what moved, when, where, and under whose control. Pre-signing turns the whole record into fiction.
Was Warren disciplined?
No. Halcyon called it an informal efficiency practice. That phrase should make every investigator in the room reach for a warrant.
Did he have a reputation for falsifying paperwork before Nolan?
He had been reprimanded as a deputy for completing vehicle inspection forms in advance. Nothing criminal was sustained. He also carried an old injury from deputy training, limited movement in his left shoulder after a fall during a restraint exercise.
So he moved mostly from the right side.
According to the occupational report, yes, he qualified with his right hand and requested modified overhead drills.
What happened to him after the payroll inquiry closed?
He stayed at Halcyon another 11 years and retired as security chief.
And the cold case sat.
Mostly. Aaron pushed for reviews in 2012 and 2018. Micah submitted public records requests for contract files. Each review ran into the same barriers: no body, missing original video, mixed DNA too weak to interpret, and financial records that did not identify who benefited.
Nolan's notebook was still hidden in the garage.
Yes, nobody performed the kind of secondary location search that treats a victim as an evidence custodian. The original warrant focused on signs he planned to flee. Detectives checked luggage, bank statements, and computers. They did not dismantle shelving or inspect behind fixed braces.
Because they searched for departure, not documentation.
Exactly. Search warrants reflect theories. If the theory is wrong, officers can stand inches from the thing they need and never recognize where to look.
That reminds me of the Corey Pines case. The master entries only mattered after investigators stopped asking when Caleb left and started asking who controlled the apartment after him.
Same procedural lesson. Control leaves records. The trick is preserving them before the person with control can curate the file.
When did that finally happen here?
2026. An emergency drawdown forced Halcyon to lower the reservoir after a separate gate actuator cracked. The Cold Case Project asked to observe every newly exposed chamber beneath Gate 4. On July 27th, workers cut through the trash screen. Behind it, they found the rear pocket, the updated drawings omitted. Nolan's remains were lodged in compacted silt, with fragments of his safety vest, one boot, a camera strap, and the metal clip from his identification badge.
Was the camera there?
No, neither were his field photographs or the lower corridor key. The killer removed the items most directly connected to what Nolan documented and how he entered.
But left him in water.
Water delays discovery and damages evidence. The chamber also offered concealment without transporting a body through public roads. The motive for putting Nolan there was practical: hide him quickly in a place the killer knew searchers would misread.
And the silt under his nails?
It contained mineral material consistent with the chamber floor, not the upper catwalk. Nolan was alive or very near death when placed behind the screen. He clawed at wet sediment during his final moments.
Brutal.
It also clarified the sequence. The skull fracture happened first. Compression at the neck followed. Then Nolan entered the flooded pocket before death was complete.
That feels less like a single panicked blow now.
I agree. Whatever began in that corridor, the attacker made repeated decisions to stop Nolan from surviving and speaking. The discovery converted the case to homicide and expanded the search authority. The Cold Case Project went back to Nolan's house with a simple question: where would a meticulous inspector preserve a duplicate?
Behind the garage workbench.
The notebook's final page listed failed ultrasonic readings beside contract numbers. It also contained a short notation that had meant little to Micah when he first saw it. North Shore billing, same repair twice.
North Shore Site Services.
A small vendor was paid for emergency cleanup, equipment staging, and confined space support at Halcyon. On paper, North Shore supplied labor around the weld repairs, but did not perform the welds themselves.
Who owned it?
Corporate filings named a woman in Wisconsin named Celia Dace, Warren's older sister.
Now we have motive.
We have a relationship requiring immediate financial investigation. Celia told detectives she formed North Shore at Warren's request, signed documents he mailed her, and never provided services to Halcyon.
A shell vendor.
Yes, Halcyon paid North Shore for work performed by existing contractors and authority personnel. Nolan's false repair certifications kept those invoices from receiving outside scrutiny. Then the bank ledger changed the case. North Shore payments did not flow to Elias Prine, Leon Baird, Mara Venn, or a contractor consortium. They paid Warren Dace's boat loan and more than $18,000 in overdue property taxes.
Personal theft, not institutional orders.
Right. I had Elias as a panicked contractor whose livelihood was collapsing. That was wrong. His work zone was used as a distraction, and the glove helped make him look violent enough to carry the story.
And I had a coordinated authority response, multiple officials protecting Halcyon through a staged disappearance. Too broad. The institution enabled the concealment, and people buried warnings to protect themselves. But this ledger points to Warren protecting Warren.
Money and control.
He did not need Gate 4 certified safe because he loved the authority. He needed the false repair cycle to continue because every emergency invoice could feed North Shore.
Nolan threatened to connect bad measurements to duplicate contract billing. If state auditors followed that connection, they would reach North Shore and then Warren's debts.
Which means the man issuing Nolan's lower corridor key heard him say he needed photographs before the evidence was cleaned up and knew exactly what those photographs could expose.
The ledger gave investigators motive. It did not yet prove Warren entered the corridor, assaulted Nolan, wrote on the windshield, or removed the hard drive.
But now, every helpful act looks different.
It has to be retested, not merely reinterpreted. Suspicion does not replace forensics. The cold case team returned to the glove because the torn cuff still held mixed biological material the original laboratory could not separate.
17 years inside evidence storage.
Dry, sealed, and fortunately not consumed by the first round of testing. Modern sequencing isolated Nolan's blood from a second male contributor, concentrated beneath the folded edge of the tear.
The place someone would grip while pulling it.
Or touching it during recovery, handling, or evidence collection. The location was suggestive, but investigators needed elimination samples from every documented searcher and technician.
Including Warren.
Including Warren Dace. And while the laboratory worked through that list, a cold case analyst went after the one thing everybody had treated as permanently lost: the deleted Gate 4 video. Her name was Priya Selnick. She had spent 28 years recovering video for insurance investigations and public corruption cases before retiring. Halcyon's current information technology director found 3 decommissioned server drives boxed for destruction in an off-site storage building.
Why were they still there?
Administrative neglect. Halcyon changed disposal vendors, the authorization numbers did not transfer, and the box sat untouched. Nothing secret or miraculous preserved it. A misdestruction order did.
Sometimes incompetence saves evidence.
More often it destroys it. But we will take the exception. The drives did not contain the missing original recording. They held an incomplete overnight backup created before the security server recycled its storage space.
17-year-old deleted fragments.
Portions of them. The old system split each video image across several disks. Deletion removed the directory, telling the computer where those pieces belonged, but it did not immediately erase every piece. Priya rebuilt file headers, matched frame dimensions, and aligned surviving image blocks by timestamp.
Painstaking.
She described it as assembling 7 jigsaw pieces after somebody threw away the picture on the box. Priya recovered 23 partial images. 16 were too damaged to interpret. 7 showed the same exterior camera angle over a span of 14 minutes.
The 7 frames from the opening.
Yes. She synchronized them using that repeating turbine warning tone and a control panel alarm recorded on a separate channel. Then another examiner independently repeated her reconstruction from untouched copies.
That matters in court.
It does. A clever result is worthless if nobody else can reproduce it. Priya documented every adapter, every software setting, and every modification between the raw fragments and the viewable frames.
What appears first?
A man leaving the lower Gate 4 access corridor, dark security jacket, reflective shoulder panel, authority radio mounted at the right hip. His face is turned away.
Security jacket, not contractor coveralls.
Correct. The second and third frames show him entering Nolan's pickup with a fleet key. Later frames place the truck on the East Service Road. In the sixth, the man is at the driver's side of the windshield with his right arm raised.
Right arm.
Yes.
Keep going.
The final frame catches the orange marking across the glass and the figure stepping backward. His left arm remains close to his torso, while his right hand finishes low near the center of the windshield. Wait.
There it is.
The message started high on the driver's side and slanted downward. Warren had limited movement in his left shoulder. He could not comfortably lift that arm to brace himself against the upper glass.
So he wrote from one fixed position. Right hand moving across, left arm held down, each letter dropping as his reach shortened.
That is the connection.
Not an identification by itself.
No. Plenty of people have shoulder injuries, and awkward writing on a wet windshield can descend for several reasons. But the movement in those frames is consistent with Warren's documented limitation.
And inconsistent with Nolan?
Nolan had no shoulder restriction. More importantly, Nolan was already behind the trash screen. The biomechanics help identify the writer. The timeline eliminates the victim.
The handwriting difference suddenly has a body attached to it.
And a motive, a key, a security jacket, administrative access, knowledge of the chamber, and a false alibi. The cold case team compared the jacket in the video with Halcyon uniform photographs. Security jackets had reflective panels. Warren's had an additional repair seam across the right pocket after it caught on a fence during a training drill.
Can we see that seam?
in 2 frames. A pale diagonal line appears below the radio. The jacket also hangs shorter on the left because Warren had the sleeve altered around his shoulder brace.
That narrows it considerably.
It does. Investigators located the tailor who modified it. Her old account book listed Warren by name and described a shortened lining with added room at the left shoulder.
So the video is not just a man in security clothing.
Correct. It shows a man wearing a jacket altered like Warren's, moving like Warren, carrying his radio on the same side, leaving a corridor Warren falsely claimed he was nowhere near.
And writing Nolan's supposed warning.
Warren Dace put that message on the truck.
There's the answer.
He wrote it after assaulting Nolan because he needed investigators to see a whistleblower story without seeing the theft underneath it.
He pointed accurately at the dangerous gate, knowing the truth would make the lie persuasive.
That is what made the staging effective. Gate 4 really had defective welds. Nolan really had warned people. Warren converted those facts into a false account of Nolan's final movements. Then the glove result came back.
Warren's profile?
The second male profile was consistent with Warren Dace. Every documented firefighter, diver, technician, and evidence officer was excluded.
Could Warren argue he touched it during the search?
He did. Through counsel, he said he might have handled Nolan's equipment while coordinating search teams.
Did the records support that?
No. The glove was photographed in place before collection. Warren stood several feet away behind the evidence line. A state police technician lifted it with clean forceps and sealed it immediately. No report placed it in Warren's hands.
And the profile was inside the tier.
Concentrated beneath the folded cuff with Nolan's blood and chamber silt. If Warren casually touched the exterior during a search, you would expect material on the exposed surface. The location fit a forceful grip during the struggle, or while Warren removed the glove from Nolan's hand.
Which explains the torn edge.
And likely explains how the glove reached Elias's work zone. Warren pulled it free, then left it beneath the repaired section to reinforce the contractor theory.
My broad institutional reading missed the personal motive. Your contractor reading mistook planted evidence for a spontaneous scene.
The ledger and DNA settle it. Elias was not Warren's accomplice. He was cover.
And Halcyon did not order the killing. Warren used Halcyon's failures as equipment.
Warren's alibi failed next. The physical South Warehouse log had never been seized in 2009. Warren supplied detectives with a fax copy, and the binder remained at Halcyon.
So what did the cold case team test?
The page currently in that binder, the one Halcyon presented as the original during a 2018 review. Its paper contained a whitening compound not manufactured until 2014. The black gel ink formulation entered the commercial market in 2013.
Impossible for an entry dated 2009.
Exactly. Warren had backfilled the binder, years later, probably because he knew another review might ask for an original instead of his fax.
Did the later page match the fax?
Almost. Same times, same gate malfunction, same claimed witnesses. But one word had been corrected. The fax said, South Receiving. The inserted page said, South Warehouse, the term Halcyon adopted after renaming the building in 2012.
Tiny mistake.
A revealing one. People fabricating old records often remember the event through current language. Warren had tied his original lie to a real sensor failure, then manufactured a cleaner source document when he feared the lie might be examined.
He managed the file for years.
That is the control side of his psychology. The murder protected his money. The continuing alterations protected his identity as the competent former deputy who had done everything correctly. On August 5, 2026, investigators arrested Warren at his home. He was 62 and had been retired from Halcyon for 5 years.
Was the boat still there?
A newer one was. The boat financed through North Shore had been sold in 2014. Bank records traced the sale proceeds into another account controlled by Warren.
Did he speak?
He denied killing Nolan. He said North Shore had been a legitimate subcontracting arrangement run by his sister, even after she told investigators she never performed or managed any work.
How did he explain the video?
He questioned the reconstruction and said several security employees wore similar jackets. When detectives raised the repaired pocket and altered left sleeve, he stopped answering and requested counsel.
Appropriate legal choice. Also the end of the interview.
Correct. Invoking counsel is not evidence of guilt. The evidence existed before that request: the payment ledger, the false log, the restored frames, his system access, his knowledge of the pocket, and his genetic profile inside Nolan's torn glove.
What was he charged with?
Open murder. Warren pleaded not guilty. The financial and evidence tampering conduct remains part of the prosecution's motive and concealment theory, though some separate financial offenses face limitations issues because of the elapsed time.
Can prosecutors prove the exact mechanics of the assault?
They do not need to identify the precise weapon to prove homicide. The depressed fracture could have been caused by a steel flashlight, wrench, pipe tool, or part of the gate machinery. No weapon was recovered.
So stay with what the evidence supports.
Nolan entered the lower corridor with the controlled key and his inspection equipment. Warren followed or met him there. Warren had heard the dispatch request and knew Nolan intended to preserve evidence before the weld surface was altered.
Warren needed the photographs and notebook page.
The working reconstruction is that Warren demanded the camera or tried to stop the inspection. A struggle tore Nolan's glove. Warren struck him in the back or side of the head, fracturing the skull.
Then Nolan could still identify him.
Yes. That is why the neck injury matters. A single blow might be argued as panic. Compressing Nolan's neck and putting him into flooded confinement are additional acts directed at ensuring he could not report Warren.
Repeated choices.
Warren removed the camera, the lower key, and Nolan's field material. He placed Nolan behind the trash screen, where the obsolete pocket and moving water would defeat a superficial search.
The chamber was not symbolic to him.
No, it was concealment close at hand. He chose it because he knew the old layout and because moving Nolan beyond the facility created more exposure.
Where does the hard hat fit?
Investigators believe Warren carried it out of the lower corridor and left it beneath the upper catwalk. It created an apparent fall or confrontation near Elias's weld section.
And the glove went under the grated stair.
Yes. Hard hat visible enough to begin the search there. Bloody glove placed where its location implicated the angry welder. Warren did not need detectives to arrest Elias immediately. He needed them looking above the chamber instead of behind the screen.
Then he returns to his normal role.
He authorized routes, supplied drawings, and explained restricted spaces. Remember Warren saying he heard Nolan request the lower key but paid no attention because of the warehouse malfunction?
Yes.
That was not a helpful witness describing a busy morning. That was the offender, pre-explaining why his own dispatch system had recorded him, hearing Nolan announce the evidence run.
He placed himself near the information while denying interest in it.
Exactly. And remember his suggestion that an engineering administrator probably removed the hard drive?
Not a witness theory. A suspect redirecting custody.
Warren was the custodian who signed the drive into the locker. He had the master key, no forced entry occurred, and no valid checkout record exists. The supported explanation is that Warren removed and destroyed the original drive after learning police intended to seize it.
The archive copy survived outside his map of the system.
He knew the active server and evidence locker. He apparently did not know an overnight fragment had migrated to decommissioned storage. After hiding Nolan, Warren used a duplicate fleet key to move pickup 12. Security controlled the cabinet holding those duplicates.
Why leave Nolan's ignition key inside?
To suggest Nolan had driven the truck himself and locked it before walking away. Warren could lock the driver's door manually, close it, and retain the duplicate. Nolan's original key stayed in the center console as part of the staging.
Wallet present, lunch present, no body.
A contradictory scene, but one that invited several theories. Workplace accident, voluntary disappearance, retaliation by a contractor, or Craig's debt dispute. Multiple plausible stories slow a homicide investigation.
Then the grease pencil sharpens one of them.
Warren took the orange marker from Nolan's kit and wrote, "Gate 4 will fail." He chose broad, dramatic language because investigators did not need engineering detail. They needed a motive headline.
And he parked where a groundskeeper would eventually find it, not where the public would see it.
Precisely. The message was designed for the search process. Warren knew the East Road was checked during evening rounds. He could leave the truck isolated without risking it sitting undiscovered for days.
Then he dropped the stub in drainage gravel.
Likely while removing his gloves or returning to another vehicle. Rain degraded whatever surface evidence remained. No elaborate disposal required.
Human planning, ordinary tools, institutional access.
And a very specific financial reason for every step.
Walk me through the motive chain without the fog Halcyon created.
Warren formed North Shore through his sister because his name could not appear on a vendor receiving money from his employer. Procurement-approved emergency invoices, false inspection summaries made repeated repair work look complete and legitimate. North Shore billed support services that were never provided.
The money paid personal debt.
Boat loan and overdue property taxes. Nolan compared raw weld readings against certified summaries and duplicate contract numbers. His stop work memorandum threatened an external review. That review would have followed invoices to North Shore.
So Warren did not kill to hide one bad weld.
He killed to stop Nolan from exposing an ongoing kickback mechanism. The defective welds were evidence of the billing fraud because Halcyon kept paying for repairs that were falsely certified and then repeated.
Why alter the inspection files instead of simply stealing the money through payroll?
Emergency infrastructure contracts received less day-to-day scrutiny and could be justified by urgent conditions. Warren's security role gave him visibility into restricted work, contractor schedules, network access, and after-hours records. He selected a fraud that fit the authority he already possessed.
Compartmentalized double life.
Publicly, a former deputy and protector of the reservoir. Privately, shell invoices covering taxes and recreational debt. Nolan forced those compartments together.
And Warren responded by trying to control not only the scene, but every later interpretation of it.
The missing administrative logs were deleted using elevated security credentials at 11:48 that night. Warren was still on duty and documented himself at the command post.
Could someone else use his password?
Technically, yes, but recovered network records showed the deletion originated from the security chief workstation, which required a physical key to activate after hours. Warren had that key. A camera outside the office was conveniently disabled from 11:32 until midnight.
Disabled how?
Its power lead was unplugged inside Warren's office, mechanical, direct, and temporary. It resumed recording after reconnection.
He did not hack the whole authority.
No, he used administrator privileges, unplugged one camera, deleted file indexes, and later removed a hard drive. Basic actions performed by the person trusted to manage the system.
What about the missing paper inspection files during the payroll inquiry?
Transfer sheets placed Warren's department in custody of the archive boxes during the real pipe leak. The leak did not damage those files. Investigators believe Warren removed the Gate 4 records during that transfer and used the unrelated water damage as his explanation.
Again, lie attached to fact.
Every major concealment followed that method. Real gate malfunction, false location, real leak, false damage, real safety warning, false final message, real contractor argument, false killer.
Did Gate 4 ever fail?
No. 6 weeks after Nolan disappeared, Halcyon quietly ground out and replaced several disputed welds. The repair order used different contract language, which helped conceal that Nolan's original findings had been correct.
They fixed the danger after burying the inspector who identified it.
Workers fixed the metal. Administrators failed Nolan. A state engineering review in 2026 confirmed the original welds had not met specification, though later reinforcement prevented the progressive cracking Nolan feared.
So the warning on the truck was technically possible, behaviorally wrong, and physically written by Warren.
Exactly. The gate survived because repair crews eventually corrected the defects, not because Nolan exaggerated them.
What happened to Leon?
His professional board reopened its review of the false certifications. He admitted signing summaries without validating raw measurements and surrendered his retired license, rather than contest disciplinary findings.
Mara?
She cooperated with the financial investigation. Prosecutors found no evidence she knew North Shore belonged to Warren's sister, or that she participated in Nolan's killing. Her contract practices remain under administrative review.
Institutional accountability arriving 17 years late.
Partial accountability. Halcyon commissioned independent control of security evidence, procurement data, and engineering records, so one department can no longer reach all three.
The design flaw Warren exploited was concentration of trust.
That is the broader lesson. Warren did not possess extraordinary criminal skill. He occupied the intersection of keys, cameras, records, and institutional credibility.
Which looked like competence.
Yes. When investigators arrived, Warren could answer practical questions faster than anyone else. Which doors opened? Which cameras worked? Which roads had been searched? Which employees had access?
He defined the boundaries of the investigation.
And detectives accepted too many of those boundaries because he spoke their language. Former law enforcement, orderly records, calm presentation.
This changed how I think about the helpful insider category. I usually look for over-involvement as a psychological tell. Someone feeding the investigation because control soothes them. Warren's advantage was more structural. Helping was literally his job.
Which made over-involvement difficult to recognize.
Exactly. He did not need to insert himself. The institution had already inserted him.
The procedural fix is independent verification. If the security chief says a corridor was searched, get the searcher's report. If he supplies a log, seize the original. If one camera fails, compare power, network, and access records. Never allow the custodian of potentially incriminating evidence to remain its sole interpreter.
And never let a dramatic clue outrank the victim's actual language.
Aaron understood that immediately. Nolan would not have written Gate 4 will fail without specifying why.
His real warning was in the notebook.
Measurements, contract numbers, duplicated billing, not a slogan.
Warren tried to make Nolan sound panicked because panic is easy to dismiss. Nolan was not panicked. He was documenting.
And his documentation survived because he made a duplicate and hid it somewhere outside Warren's control.
That habit brought the motive back.
The notebook connected the weld data to North Shore, the ledger connected North Shore to Warren, the video connected Warren to the truck, the glove connected him to the struggle.
4 independent lines.
That is how a circumstantial case becomes strong. No single item carries the whole prosecution. Each one answers a different question: why, where, what he did afterward, and whether he physically contacted Nolan.
What remains unknown?
The murder weapon, the location of Nolan's camera, the missing lower corridor key, and exactly what Warren said during the confrontation. Investigators believe he destroyed or discarded those items, but they have not been recovered.
Open details, not an open mechanism.
Correct. The human explanation is complete even where individual objects remain missing. Warren had the motive, access, knowledge, and evidence control authority. The recovered frames show the staging itself.
Warren still has a trial ahead of him.
He does. Investigative resolution and judicial resolution are not the same thing. Prosecutors must authenticate the restored video, establish the financial trail, defend the genetic analysis, and prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.
Where will the defense push?
They are likely to attack the reconstructed frames as incomplete, argue secondary transfer for the glove DNA, and suggest another security employee used Warren's credentials and jacket.
Does that alternate person have access to North Shore's money?
That is the problem. An alternate theory has to account for all the evidence, not just create uncertainty around one piece. Another employee might wear a similar coat. Another employee might know the chamber. But the same person would also need Warren's altered jacket pattern, his shoulder movement, his workstation key, his shell company, and his reason to fabricate the alibi.
Convergence.
Strong convergence. Still, a jury will decide. Warren remains charged, not convicted.
Has the family said much since the arrest?
Aaron asked for privacy for their daughter. Micah thanked the drawdown workers, Priya Selnick, and the Cold Case Project. He also said finding Nolan was not closure in the simple sense. It was an end to uncertainty and the beginning of accountability.
That feels honest.
Nolan's remains were released to his family after the forensic examination. They held a private memorial overlooking the reservoir, away from the authority buildings.
His daughter grew up with strangers debating whether he abandoned her.
Yes. The homicide finding ended that lie. So did the evidence that Nolan returned to Gate 4 because he was doing exactly what his family always said he would do: verify the danger, preserve the measurement, and bring the truth home.
He almost did.
Warren interrupted the return. He could not erase the work.
That is the part I keep landing on. Warren controlled the key, the camera, the search route, the archive, and for years the story. Nolan controlled one hidden duplicate.
One duplicate was enough once investigators asked the right question.
Not where would a debtor hide, but where would an inspector preserve evidence?
Theory determines search. Search determines what survives into court.
And victimology is not decoration. Knowing Nolan's precision exposed the message as imitation before science named the hand that wrote it.
The grease pencil warning accomplished what Warren intended in the short term. It turned Nolan's disappearance into a maze of safety fears, contractor conflict, personal debt, and institutional embarrassment.
But it also preserved Warren's behavior.
He had to move the truck to create the message. Moving the truck put him on the backup camera. Writing across the glass revealed his right-handed movement and restricted left shoulder.
The staging added evidence that did not need to exist.
That happens often. Offenders believe a scene needs explanation, so they provide one. Every additional action creates another opportunity for transfer, recording, timing, or contradiction.
If he had left the truck at Gate 4,
investigators might have searched the lower chamber more aggressively. Warren needed distance between Nolan's last badge event and the apparent place of disappearance. The truck staging bought that distance.
so it was not pointless overacting.
No, it had a rational purpose: redirect the search, implicate the repair dispute, and suggest Nolan remain mobile after the assault. It worked because Warren understood procedure.
Until procedure improved.
Until independent financial review, modern genetic testing, archival recovery, and a physical drawdown converged on the person who had curated the first investigation.
Nolan documented the gate, and finally the gate gave him back.
Warren stands charged. Our Gate 4 file is closed.
Next week changed my mind about the investigators I instinctively trust and how competence can become a disguise. If you want to test that assumption with us, like this episode and subscribe so you don't miss it.